Hey, sisters. I want to talk to you heart to heart today. No guests, no scripts. Well, okay, maybe a little outline, but mostly it's just me showing up real and raw. This episode has been a long time coming, and that's actually kind of the point because what I want to talk about today is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to push harder. It's to pause and to wait, and most importantly, to listen. Now, if you know me, you know that is not my default setting. I'm a get it done kind of gal. Military background, business builder. In one of my corporate jobs, they actually did call me the get shit done gal. Life doesn't wait, and neither do I. But life has a funny way of teaching you what you most need to learn. And it's usually at the exact moment that you least want the lesson. So let me kind of tell you what happened. Over the past couple months, I've had guests lined up for this podcast, powerful women, stories I couldn't wait to share. I had the calendar filled, the outlines were ready, the energy was building, and then one canceled. Okay, no big deal. But then another, and then another. And this one we scheduled twice and still didn't make it. So at first I kind of tried to pivot and I rearranged and I filled the holes and I told myself, just keep going. But something in me said, stop. And that little whisper just grew louder and louder and louder because it wasn't just the canceled interviews, it was how they made me feel. I mean, here I am talking about imposter syndrome, and I'm feeling disappointed and drained. And if I had to be honest, maybe a little, I don't know what's a good word, unmoored. Like, was I doing this out of alignment? Was I trying to fill airtime when what I really needed to do was just take time? That's not easy to admit when you're someone people look to for leadership. When you've built a brand around helping women stand tall and speak loud and own their path. But even guides get lost sometimes. Even I need rest occasionally, I guess. So I stepped back, not because I was giving up, but because I knew something deeper was trying to rise. And and during that quiet time, I learned a lot. I learned that I had started operating from a place of pressure instead of purpose. I had a schedule. I promised a new episode every Monday and every Friday, and then I backtracked and said every Monday, and I couldn't even keep up with that. And it was pressure. I was operating from this sense that if I didn't live up to that fulfillment of that weekly episode, then people would look at me as not a serious podcaster. And I learned that showing up consistently is important. It definitely, definitely is. If I tell you I'm going to be here every Monday, I need to be here every Monday. But how you show up matters more than how often. And I learned that when everything external seems to be saying go, but your soul says wait, you better wait. And I learned that what I thought was a setback a failure was actually sacred space, sacred time. You see, in our culture, especially in business, we glorify hustle. We wear busy like it's a badge of honor. We fill the silence with noise because we're so afraid of what the stillness might reveal. But what if the stillness is where the answers live? What if that's where we find the real answers? What if the pause isn't a punishment so much? What if it's preparation? I had to learn to wait well, I guess. I had to learn to wait properly, okay? Properly. To stop doing long enough to start listening, not to the noise, but to my own wisdom. There's a meditation that I do, a guided meditation called the Wise Mind. And I actually did do it during this time frame. And yes, it taught me that I had to listen to the wise mind, my wise mind, my inner compass, the God whispers that only speak when you finally sit still and listen. And here's the part that no one talks about. Waiting is uncomfortable, especially when you're used to producing. Every day I wondered, what are people thinking of me? What are my listeners thinking of me? There were days when I sat with my podcast mic in front of me and thought, I should be recording. There were days when I looked at my content calendar and thought, I'm falling behind. But I knew that pushing out content from an empty well was worse than staying quiet. I didn't want to show up out of obligation. I wanted to show up with integrity. You know, I tell my email, when you subscribe to my email list, the first thing you get is an email from me telling you that I will only write to you when I feel like I have something to say, that I'm never going to just send out emails to keep up with the schedule. That sometimes you may get, 5 in a week, and sometimes you may not get one for a couple of weeks, because I only send an email out when I actually feel like I have something to say. I wanted to show up with that same kind of, I really have something to say on my podcast. And I didn't feel like I did have anything to say at the moment. Now, were those days wasted? Oh no, let me tell you about those quiet days. They rebuilt me. I heard this truth loud and clear. You don't have to prove your value by always being visible. Sometimes your greatest alignment comes in the moments when no one's watching. And I remembered why I started this podcast, and it was not for vanity metrics. Trust me, okay? I know very little about podcasting, so it was definitely not for vanity metrics. And it was not for the dopamine hit of downloads, because, like I said, I'm just getting started. I'm building my audience. There's none of that. Ooh, I hit 5 million listeners today. But I started it because I believe in the power of stories and the power of truth and the power of a woman using her voice to light the way for others. And that calling, that purpose, that mission, it doesn't go away just because my whole plan fell apart. So now I'm back. but I'm not rushing to fill up my guest schedule. Although I do have several, I have several recorded now. Okay. I have several recorded, and I'll be dropping those over the coming days. But I'm not going to rush to fill up my guest schedule. And I'm not throwing together episodes just to stay on track. I'm coming back with more clarity and more calm and more conviction than ever before. The Rebel Tribe podcast is not just a platform. It's a promise to share what's real, to lead with purpose, and to honor the pace as much as the purpose. And if you're listening to this right now, thinking, yeah, I've been in this kind of weird season too. Okay, let me say this. You are not behind, and you are not broken, and you sure as hell aren't failing. You're evolving. And sometimes that looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like stopping. And sometimes it looks like that space, that breath that you take just before you rise, stronger than ever. So as I wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with a few questions that kind of helped me during my own pause. Ask yourself this. What are you doing out of pressure that used to come from passion? Where are you pushing when your soul is asking you to pause? And what might you hear if you gave yourself permission to just be still for a moment and listen? Go put these questions in your journal, take them on a walk, let them simmer, and then answer them from the heart, because we don't just act. We listen, we feel, and then we move with intention and with power and with fire. So thanks for letting me show up a little softer today. Like I said, I've already got some episodes recorded. I've got some powerful guests coming. I've got some bold conversations, plenty of sass. But today was about the soul. And sometimes that's exactly what we need the most. So stay wild, stay wise, but most importantly, stay in tune with your stay in tune with your wise mind, okay? I'm cheering you on every step of the way.